We are now headed into the second half of RWBY Volume 9, and that means the pace is about to pick up. At the end of last episode, not only did we get the reveal of Jean, how he has aged in the Ever After, seemingly been here for a very long time, we also saw that Neo finally made her move, having multiple clones of Jabberwalkers going after Team RWBY. And these clones are a lot tougher than her previous creations from her semblance back in Remnant. The Ever After has certainly given Neo a power boost, and has also given her some new options in exacting her revenge on RWBY. At the end of last episode, there are some ideas that RWBY may have actually been kidnapped during the commotion when the rest of her team was fighting against the Jabberwalker. She was defenseless, ran off to the side, and afterwards, she didn't say anything. When they were fleeing from the horde of Jabberwalkers, not a word left her mouth for the rest of the episode, and we didn't see Little riding on her shoulders. So, a lot of people are thinking that maybe she was kidnapped by Neo at the end of last episode and replaced with a clone created from Neo's semblance, or possibly even Neo herself. But I don't think that would be the case. Neo wants to kidnap RWBY to take her elsewhere and exact her revenge. Now, previously in the RWBY series, Neo wanted to exact her revenge just by straight up killing RWBY in the same way that Neo presumes that RWBY ended up killing Roman. Though we know that isn't exactly the case, Neo still thinks that way. And although she used to want to just straight up kill RWBY, I think it would make a lot more sense and create a much more dramatic of a scene if Neo actually wanted to capture RWBY alive and exact her revenge in a more creative way. Utilizing the new abilities of her semblance in the Ever After, Neo is able to bring other beings to life. The Jabberwalkers, there are multiple of them created from Neo's semblance. Each of them can talk and seem to operate autonomously, or rather, operate in the exact same way that the original Jabberwalker did, though in this case under Neo's control. So Neo's semblance can bring things to life a lot more readily. And so, what if Neo brought to life a version of Roman Torchwick created from her memory, able to sound the exact same, act the exact same, and essentially be a perfect copy of Roman, though a perfect copy created from Neo's memories alone, and Neo allowed Roman himself to exact revenge on RWBY. That Neo had that clone of Roman act the exact same way that he did back during volumes 1, 2, and 3 when he was fighting against RWBY, and we would end up with kind of a rehash of that fight on top of the Elysian airship where it was Neo and Roman against RWBY, and RWBY didn't have her weapon, so Roman was able to kind of wail on her a little bit. And in this case, RWBY, with her mental state, without her Crescent Rose, would be practically defenseless. She's not good at hand-to-hand combat. Maybe this would be an opportunity for her to start fighting back, but yeah. This would be a perfect opportunity not only to see Neo and RWBY in direct conflict with one another without any outside interference, it would also give us a chance to see Roman Torchwick again in the series, and this would also be the perfect opportunity for RWBY to convince Neo that she didn't actually kill Roman. Because the way that the Ever After is interacting with the characters from Remnant, that Neo's semblance is enhanced, and that it's interacting with the emotions of RWBY. When RWBY cried, the world did also. If Neo is able to give life to a clone of Roman through her own memories, then perhaps RWBY's memories of Roman would also influence that clone in a similar fashion. And it could be Roman himself that is able to tell Neo that RWBY wasn't actually the one that killed him. In fact, he was just eaten by a griffin. I think this would be one of the only ways where Neo would actually believe that RWBY didn't kill Roman. Because in any scenario that I can imagine at this point in Volume 9, where RWBY and Neo have a chance to talk and RWBY's saying, hey, I didn't kill him, I didn't take out Roman, you know, it wasn't me, it was a griffin, it was a Grimm, I didn't do it, Neo's not going to listen. But if those words were coming directly from Roman's mouth, from the memories that RWBY has, that's a bit more concrete, bit more believable. And that's something that I think Neo would come to understand. I don't think she'd necessarily want to be allies with RWBY at that point, but she might focus her anger then on Cinder and cooperate with RWBY to get out of the Ever After. Though Neo's also caused a lot of chaos in the Ever After, I don't know if RWBY and especially the rest of her team are really going to be ready to forgive that and even be willing to cooperate with Neo for the common goal of getting out. I don't know if anyone would really buy that. So there's definitely going to be conflict that happens between RWBY and Neo individually, as well as the number of clones that Neo is going to create with her semblance of the Jabberwalkers and the other individuals that we see in shadow behind her in the Volume 9 opening. There is still a lot to explore with Neo and a lot of conflict that is going to happen, and I think it would be the perfect scenario to have Neo kidnap RWBY, bring her over to that land of darkness, or the acre of darkness, I guess, in the Ever After, and have a clone of Roman that looks and acts exactly like he did when he was alive, attack RWBY and exact his own revenge. Neo probably joining in, getting a few good lashes as well, but, you know, I think that would set up a perfect scene where all of us would get to see Roman again, Neo and RWBY have their conflict, etc. I think it would just be the perfect scenario all around, but maybe something else will happen. Maybe you guys have other ideas. Feel free to let me know down in the comments below. We'll just have to see how things unfold, and to see if Neo actually does kidnap RWBY, or if she was able to at the end of episode 5. But at the end of that episode, although RWBY didn't say anything after the Jabberwalker fight, and we didn't see Little riding on her shoulder when she was comforting Weiss, and, you know, when she was running away from the Jabberwalker horde, I don't know when Neo actually would have had the opportunity to kidnap RWBY. Because when RWBY was waiting by the sidelines as Weiss, Blake, and Yang were fighting against the Jabberwalker, along with Jean, the Rusted Knight at the time, the Curious Cat was right there with her, standing on the table right behind her. So the Curious Cat would have known if Neo came and kidnapped RWBY, but the Curious Cat didn't say anything, so perhaps the cat just ignored that and is on Neo's side. That could be a heck of a twist for the rest of the volume. That the cat encountered Neo first and she was able to convince the cat to be on her side, or perhaps the cat has been a clone created by Neo's semblance all along. There really is a lot of things that could happen here, but ultimately the cat did not take his eyes off of RWBY for pretty much the entire time from the start of the Jabberwalker fight until, well, RWBY was running away following Weiss. Now maybe when RWBY was running away from the Jabberwalker horde that showed up and the cat and the bird were holding them off, maybe that was the opportunity for Neo to kidnap RWBY. But up until that time, I don't think there really was. Because if we follow the chain of events, RWBY traded her emblem for the leprechaun nose hairs to make the Grogurt parfait to get Weiss, Blake, and Yang back up to normal size. During that exchange, that's when the Jabberwalker showed up. She traded her emblem as pretty much a last-ditch effort to get the nose hairs and, you know, create that parfait. And then once the parfait was created, Blake, Weiss, and Yang didn't eat enough in their first helping to actually grow to normal size. At this time, we do still see Little on RWBY's shoulder, but that is the last time we see Little in the episode. As the Jabberwalker starts to charge, we hear Little screech, and RWBY kind of puts her hands behind herself, so either Little maybe hid themselves in RWBY's hood, or maybe RWBY put Little into a pouch on her belt or something, though that doesn't really make sense. If the screech that Little made was because they and RWBY were being kidnapped at that very moment, when the Curious Cat, Blake, Weiss, and Yang all looked at the Jabberwalker because it started charging, that would be the only opportunity that I think was available. But then in that moment, RWBY grabbed up Weiss, Blake, and Yang, as well as the parfait, and used her semblance to try to get around the Jabberwalker. And then the Jabberwalker swatted her out of the air, and then we hear RWBY groan as she's being hit, the last time we hear her voice in the episode. But more to the point, she used her semblance. So unless Neo's clones of individuals are powerful enough to have their own aura and use another person's semblance, which would be even more broken of Neo's abilities have already improved astronomically. To have them improve that much more would be kind of insane. So I think that when RWBY used her semblance, it was actually her. It was not a clone left behind by Neo or Neo herself, because Neo couldn't use RWBY's semblance, and I would imagine that a clone created by Neo couldn't use RWBY's semblance. But hey, who knows, in the Ever After, Neo's semblance might have just been made to literally the most powerful semblance that we've seen thus far, if it is able to clone people as well as semblances. Next thing we see is the bird swooping in, having its purpose rewritten by the cat, and the cat tells RWBY to get Weiss, Blake, and Yang over to the Grogurt parfait. They do so, they are able to grow to normal size, and the battle begins. And the cat does not leave Ruby's side until he and the bird start holding off the Jabberwocker horde that showed up. So I don't really think there was an opportunity for Ruby to be kidnapped by Neo. It is an idea that I really like, that Neo wants to kidnap Ruby now and use a clone of Roman Torchwick to exact his own revenge. But I don't think it would have happened just yet. Also, when the Jabberwocker first saw Team RWBY, what it was saying was run, eat, kill, devour. So that doesn't really imply the intention of kidnapping. That more implies the intention of killing, considering it said the word kill. But, that being said, the Jabberwocker could have been programmed by Neo to only target Blake, Weiss, and Yang, so that Neo could sneak in personally, kidnap Ruby, possibly holding Little hostage to make sure that Ruby doesn't resist, and drag her away to the Acre of Darkness, and then exact her revenge there. So it is possible that Neo was able to kidnap Ruby at the end of last episode, but it just doesn't seem that likely. But I do like the implications of Neo wanting to kidnap Ruby versus just straight up killing her. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you think that Ruby was kidnapped at the end of last episode? Do you think that it would make sense that Neo wants to kidnap Ruby at this point? And do you like my idea of Neo wanting to kidnap her to allow a clone of Roman to exact his own revenge? And through that clone and Ruby's memories of Roman, the truth being revealed of Roman's demise. That being the probably one of the only ways that I can think of, at least, that would actually convince Neo that Ruby didn't kill Roman. Because the only three people that were on top of that airship was Roman, Ruby, and Neo. And Neo got thrown off. Roman's demise was only witnessed by, well, himself and Ruby. So, you know, she's only probably going to believe one out of those two people. And that particular individual is dead. Though, I still think that there's a good chance he's alive out there somewhere in Remnant, but it seems as though the writers are going with the narrative that Roman is dead, unfortunately. In the meantime, I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this idea. If you guys enjoyed this video, want to see more like it, make sure to subscribe and join the Guild of the Eternal Flame. If you guys like No Game No Life, make sure to check out my second channel, The Daily Flugel. And if you want to see some games played live, make sure to check out my Twitch channel, linked in the description below. I stream every Tuesday and Saturday. With that being said though, I'll see you guys in the next video.